Hey everyone, this is Zach, and I wanted to walk through a couple of new commands that I've added to Ansible Butler in release 1.0.16. So as you can see here on my terminal, I've got the help menu up for Ansible Butler, and the two commands I want to focus on today are Ansible Butler EE Dependencies and Ansible Butler Playbook List Collections. So I added these two commands basically to help me when I am building out execution environments, and the first one is gives me the ability to find collections that I'm using in a group of playbooks or a particular playbook. And it'll track down includes, so I don't have to go through and follow the include task and the include roles and see what all is being used there. And then the second one will be inspecting an execution environment definition and allowing me to figure out if I've got any Python dependency conflicts based off of the collections I am specifying. So let's just go ahead and dive into it, and I'll first start with the playbook list collections command, LC for short, and then I'm going to give it a context directory, and that's going to be playbooks. And so as you can see, I've got output, and there's several sections, so each section just corresponds to a playbook that lives in my context directory. The way the output structured is per collection, so here you can see I found Ansible built-in reference in this playbook 40 times, and it even prints out the locations for you, which is really nice, so you can go track down and see how it's being used. And in this particular case, it followed an include role. So I had some rel system roles being included, and it went down and found the task files for that particular role and what collections are being used. In addition, I had references to Azure and Amazon AWS collections in this playbook. I did that for demo purposes. You probably won't have both of those in the same playbook, but maybe, you never know. And so just to show, it counted AWS twice and then the Azure AZ collection once. If I go down, there's a few other examples here. I have a Windows test where I'm using built-in and Windows, and it let me know how many times and where I'm doing that, and then same with Azure and AWS. So that's what the output looks like. You can also hone in on a specific playbook if you're just curious what collections a particular playbook is using, and you don't have to go through the trial and error of running it and saying can't find this collection, running it again, can't find this collection. After you've done the collection install, just save yourself a little bit of time. So the next one I want to show is the Ansible execution environment dependencies. So I'm going to go into this test folder where I have some good test files for us to play with. And I'll go ahead and show what I've got here. So I've got a requirements.yaml, and then a couple execution environment definitions, one with version 2 and one with version 3. If you're not on version 3 yet, I highly recommend you take a look and see what the changes are, because it very much simplifies what the definition looks like and consists of, and you can keep everything in one file, so you don't have to have a big repo for a pretty small unit of work. And to get going, so the way that I wrote the dependencies command is it actually will handle just a straight up requirements.yaml file. So if you're listing, have collections and requirements file, but it can also take in an execution environment definition. So to start, I'll go ahead and just directly run it against the requirements.yaml file. And as you can see, with the requirements.yaml file, it went ahead and found that, okay, the collections I had listed here, if I go ahead and cat that out, the only external dependencies that we found were in the infra.ee utilities. It actually requires podman as a system binary. So that's one thing it'll do for you. The command is mostly written actually to handle with the Python dependency conflicts. The system dependencies is a side benefit. So let me show what the command looks like when you run it against a execution environment definition. So this v2 actually points at the same requirements.yaml file. So just as a heads up, the output's going to look similar. In this particular case, needed to add the / here. So the output looks the exact same, and that's to be expected. So because in this particular execution environment, I'm just actually pointing at the requirements.yaml file that we just processed. But as a more exciting, let's look at v3, which has its own collections defined. And you can see a lot more output here. So what actually happened, initially we identified our dependencies, so no system dependencies in this case, but we had 2 Python dependencies from the redhat.openshift collection. And when that happens, we actually go ahead and do a quick pip dry run. So I have a note here, but just keep in mind nothing's being installed, nothing's changing in your environment. In this case, it actually succeeded. You saw no errors. Where this can come in handy is if you do have Python dependency conflicts, you'll actually get the resolution and possible error. That'll just allow you to know, and it'll tell you, where your conflicts lie, and allow you to go in and fix your Python dependencies in the most appropriate way for the work that you need to be done. An example that could have caused that here is if I had another collection, let's say, that defined Kubernetes less than 12 as a dependency. Obviously Red Hat.OpenShift needs greater than or equal to 12, so I would have had that would have created a resolution impossible situation. And I've gotten that error, and it would have told me the version that I'm defining in one place and another, and that's when I can go and look it up and fix it. So you can do this with Builder. If you run Builder against an execute environment, it'll, during that build process, it will eventually fail, and it will fail on the Python installation process. I personally don't find the output to be as useful in some cases, and it takes a while to get there. So this command is just kind of a quicker path to figuring out, are you good on your Python dependencies, and in just inspecting an EE in general, if you're just curious what all is going to be installed when you do build the execution environment itself. One note is that if within your EE definition, so if I go ahead and print out our EE v3 here, so if in here I were to have had Python dependencies listed as well, so specific Python dependencies unrelated to what the collections reference, it actually would have merged those in with the collection dependencies as well, to do the pip dry run. So just wanted to note that as well in case you introduce a conflict in your Python dependencies that you specify with the collections themselves. So if you enjoyed this, and I hope you are able to take advantage of these commands. As always, I'm trying to make Ansible Butler better and more useful for everyone, so if you have other ideas, feel free to reach out, or if you find any bugs or issues with the current commands, please reach out and let me know, and we'll get those fixed. Thank you.